Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to seek a statement under Standing Order number 47-1, and it reads as my statement reads as follows. Pursuant to Standing Order 47-1, I rise to make a statement on an issue of national concern, namely the burial of Mr. James Orengo, a resident of Siaya County, who reportedly died of COVID-19 disease. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 disease is a worldwide pandemic that has brought serious challenges to our normal life and the public health system. The measures the national government has taken to contain the spread and impact of the pandemic in the country are commendable. However, we have to prepare for the worst before things can get better. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of the fight against COVID-19, certain regrettable incidents have occurred which have generated public outcry. Mr. Speaker, in Sumur Village, Ukwala location, Ugenya constituency in Siaya County, on the night of the 12th, 13th April 2020, James Orengo Onyango reportedly died from COVID-19 and was buried in the middle of the night in extremely gruesome circumstances. Mr. Speaker, while we appreciate the circumstances the country is in and cognizant of the Ministry of Health guidelines on handling of bodies of persons who have died of COVID-19, the burial of James Orengo elicits serious concerns that I would wish the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya to look into and revert to the House with a response. The committee should, one, state the cause of death of Mr. James Orengo Onyango. This is because up to now, the family has not been given any report, any death report showing, or certificate of death showing the cause of death. Secondly, explain the reason and justification for the burial of the deceased at night and in a shallow grave and without being placed in a coffin as the family had planned. Three, explain why there was a complete disregard of the protocols laid out by the Ministry of Health concerning respect for the dignity of the dead, the hours of burial, and sensitivity to acceptable cultural practices and traditions. Mr. Speaker, this is in line with what the ministry itself has put out there as guidelines for burial of persons purportedly, who have died out of this contagion or this disease. Four, state why there was no consultation with the family and the community before the burial. And Mr. Speaker, I may add that the entire homestead of a family of more than 20 people has been completely evacuated. There's nobody in that home, and anybody who goes into the homestead is taken up and quarantined. And to that extent, Mr. Speaker, while on the floor, it may be desirous of the authorities to allow the fumigation of that homestead so that people can come back later to pay their respects to the departed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will allow limited contribution because we have a constraint on time. Senator Khaneri and Senator Wetangula. Then Chariot, okay.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. I want to support the statement as raised by the Senior Counsel, James Orengo. Mr. Speaker, I watched that clip in horror. It was traumatizing, And I asked myself, if he's traumatizing me, how about the family of the deceased? Mr. Speaker, the reason I have reason to make a contribution is for two reasons. Number one, of course, to support Senator James Orengo so that the ministry comes up with an explanation, proper explanation why this had to happen to this gentleman and to this family so that it is avoided in future. But secondly, and most importantly, what was very disgusting is the way the mainstream media kept repeating the clip. Mr. Speaker, the sight of what happened is not pleasing at all. And I think we want to appeal to our mainstream media that such incidences, it will be good even if they were to show, just show it once. I don't know if you members saw that some of our mainstream media just kept repeating the clip like 10 times in one bulletin. I can imagine what this did to the family of this bereaved man. Mr. Speaker, we want to urge the media, even as the ministry comes with an explanation, to filter what they give to the public, particularly at this difficult time for this country and the world at large. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what happened to our deceased brother in Siaya is abhorrent and disgusting. Mr. Speaker, in my community where you and I come from, we revere the dead even more than the living. And we cannot, Mr. Speaker, allow this kind of barbaric behavior in sending off our loved ones. And Mr. Speaker, I don't speak for the ministry, but I want to inform our distinguished senator for Siaya that the first victim of COVID-19, Engineer Namiinda, happens to come from where you and I come from. And Mr. Speaker, when I consulted the ministry, they gave us very decent and clear direction. They quarantined the family until such a time as they tested them and they tested negative. They advised that the body be wrapped in 3 body bags, then be put in a gasket or coffin, then it be sealed on the understanding that there will be no viewing of the body when it gets home for burial. And Engineer Namiinda, Mr. Speaker, as you know, was taken home and decently laid to rest in Kitale. Why they turned around to do this to this gentleman in Siaya? Mr. Speaker, the only time I've seen a dead body of any animal treated like that is of an animal that has died of anthrax. Nothing else. This is detestable, and we want the committee, Mr. Speaker, to bring this to the fore so that Kenyans don't suffer this trauma when they're already traumatized by both the disease and for this family, the loss of their loved one. Thank you.
Senator Rose Nyamunga, then I'll have 3 from this side and we'll close that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand just to say 1 or 2 things about what happened to the late Mr. Onyango, who is, from what I understand, was a member and a senior member of the Kenya Ports Authority. Mr. Speaker, from where I sit, I've had several explanations going round, so we don't even know exactly what happened. We are not sure if he died of COVID virus, we are not sure. And the inhumane way in which it was done, it was so difficult for us who are not even relatives. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very important for us as Kenyans to know that, yes, this COVID virus is with us. It's going to claim many more lives, and I pray it doesn't, because Kenya has been doing very well in terms of the management of this disease. But going forward, it is important how we treat the dead, and we should also have the families at heart. I also had an opportunity to listen to a conversation between the wife and one of the members of the public, and it was also going around in the media. The way the woman was treated also, I do not know why she was treated like that. Even if the members or the medical fraternity in wherever this clinic where he was, even if they suspected that he could have had the virus, and we know it is very dangerous, Mr. Speaker, but the whole thing, the way it was handled is very, very sad, and it's very unfortunate. So going forward, I think it is important for the Ministry of Health to give us more way forward and see how we are going to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheriot, then Senator Ali, and Susan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. Mr. Speaker, I share in the concerns of Leader of Minority, Senator James Orengo, on the very unfortunate incident that befell one of his constituents. Mr. Speaker, while I've had many of my colleagues speak on the need for the Ministry of Health to give us answers on why these things are happening, I think it is time that we also, as parliamentarians and members of parliament, we got introspective about our conduct during this coronavirus pandemic. Truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that in so many of the things that are happening, we have allowed them as leaders in this republic. As members of parliament, we have abdicated our responsibilities, all in the spirit of trying to remain decent and not appear to be questioning what government is doing, and hoping that you extend a hand of goodwill to government and expect that they will behave within the confines of the law. Well, the unfortunate thing is that no government anywhere in the world does that. And that is why you have a parliament, to check on the excesses of government when things are normal. How about a time like now when you are living in abnormal times? As a House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I think it is time that we begin questioning many of the decisions that the executive is taking without the approval of Parliament. It is not good enough to just say that because we are in a pandemic, government has a free rein to do anything. If, even according to Section 58 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, when you declare a state of emergency, after 21 days, you need to revert to Parliament to get additional time to be able to do that. This curfew that has been going on, say, for example, it's time that government comes back to us and say, these are the reasons that we feel as Parliament, you need to extend additional time unto us. See what happened the other day, Mr. Speaker, where somebody sits at a particular office, gazettes regulations, and says, if you are a citizen and you are found without a face mask, you are charged 20,000 shillings. 20,000 is an arm and a leg to the ordinary Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. Some of the people who are making these resolutions don't know what ordinary Kenyans go through. And therefore, as a House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and this is expressly provided, Article 94(5), no other body apart from Parliament has the authority to give instructions that have the force of law except Parliament.
You'll have to manage your time because we don't have...
I have concluded, Mr. Speaker. All in all, I'm calling upon us that let us check on the excesses of government during this pandemic as a House of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My condolences to the family, and I'm in support of what the minority leader said. Mr. Speaker, sir, even if these people are sick, these are our people, and we have to respect them. They are human beings, and human beings are the top of the strata, Mr. Speaker. When you misbehave like that and you treat our dead like that, then what do you expect? This is how stigmas arise. Corona is a disease, yes, but if you stigmatize it to that level, then it's going to cause a lot of damage and problems to this country, Mr. Speaker. The other thing is that it is going to cause a lot of psychological and mental problems to the families concerned. As you have already been told by Honorable Ghaniri, those people who watched, if the members of Parliament can see it as that way, what about the family? Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very serious issue, and we should be very careful with this to take care of our people in whichever way is possible. Stigma and mental illness can cause more damage than corona itself. Thank you.
Senator Susan.
Oh, thank you, Speaker. I also rise and support the statement by the Leader of Minority. And also I'm also one of the people who watched the tape or the recording that was trended actually a few days ago in social media, and it was really, really gut-wrenching. I cannot imagine what that family must be going through. It was so inhuman. And also knowing as African cultures, within our African culture, how much we value and give dignity and respect to the dead, it was completely wrong for what we saw going around. And especially also doing it at 2 a.m. in the morning. I just did not understand why that would even be the case, or even why with the proper protocols, the family was treated the way that it was. So with the proper protocols, this could have been done better and must be done better going forward. Back in the 80s, we saw this sort of stuff with those who had died from HIV/AIDS. And that is really what led to a lot of the stigma that was attached to that disease and continues to be the case even today. So we cannot allow this to happen, as then the stigma that will be attached and continues to be attached to this COVID-19 will then get out of hand. So, Mr. Speaker, I also join my colleagues in saying that as Parliament, we must do our part. And despite what is going on right now, we must still continue to check the excesses of the executive. Thank you.
Okay, the chair ad hoc committee, I hope you've heard, take up the matter and report to us next week when we meet on Tuesday. Senator Kabaka, your statement, and very, very fast.
I've not received, Mr. Speaker, that statement yet.
I approved it.
I don't have it.
I approved it, it was here.
Let me have a copy. I've been told throughout to wait. So as a
give him a statement, I approved it.
I haven't seen it. Mr. Speaker, sir, please.
It was
That's
here.
why I've been looking around.
What's your point of order, Senator?
Mr. Speaker, as Senator Kabaka is looking for his letter, sorry, Mr. Speaker, I forgot to give a notice on the Mr. Speaker, that's what I'm asking for your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, because the motion that is meant to alter our calendar was skipped because we don't have papers here. So with your indulgence, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, proceed as we look for...
May I give the notice?
Statement, okay.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give the following notice of motion. Alteration of the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the fourth session, that pursuant to standing orders 28 and 29, the resolution of the Senate made on 27 February 2020 and on 7th March 2020 regarding the Senate calendar, the Senate now resolves to alter its calendar further in respect of Part 1 and Part 3 of the calendar to hold one sitting in each week on Tuesdays beginning on Tuesday 21st of April 2020 until Tuesday 2nd of April 2nd of June 2020. Under the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the fourth session 2020 be altered accordingly.